Hello everyone, welcome to the unfiltered feed. And today I'm joined by Yash, and that will be the norm basically. We both will take you through the journey of covering cricket, F1, tennis, and other sports, but majorly these three. And then we'll include a few tech topics that are trending around the world. We'll talk about geopolitics and basically all topics that uh, Indians or like people of our age group and people that belong to our community find interesting. So we won't limit ourselves to a single topic and we'll expand, and hopefully our audience will also enter get entertained and encourage us to continue this podcast. Your thoughts on this, Yash?
Yeah, first of all, really happy to be here. And for the viewers, Ved is my little brother. So we are not just friends, but we are family. And we used to run a podcast a few years back, which was mainly focused around cricket. And then we kind of discovered that cricket was very limiting. And we have a lot of other interests that we would like to talk about. So after a couple of years, we are here now with this. We waited for 2 years because Ved was very busy with his education. He finished his grade 12 exam. So the last 2 years were very busy for him, and I am also studying computer science in Canada. So I was busy as well. And now we've found the right free time for both of us, and we'll hopefully be able to be much more consistent with this and talk about a lot more things.
Yes, we can. It's safe to assume that the last 2 years went into research and finding out the pattern that our audience follows. So hopefully we are prepared and second time lucky.
Yeah.
So let us dive into today's khazana of topics, and obviously cricket will hold a major part of it because at the end we are all cricket fanatics. How much ever we try to show that we follow a diverse range of topics, but cricket is cricket.
Yeah,
So let us start with
cricket is called as the religion of India. And in our family, we have
yes,
been watching cricket for so many years. So this is the best topic to start with.
yes, and nothing better than Test cricket. If you are a true fan, you'll agree with that. And so a lot of Test cricket is going on around the world. This is also called as unofficially the Test season in the calendar. While many people would like to argue that this is also T20 league season because we have around 4 to 5 leagues in India itself, and then we have the MLC, and I think CPL will start, the 100 will start, but real fans don't consider that as cricket. So for us, Test cricket is all that is going on right now in men's cricket. And so let us start with the most prominent series, which is India Tour of England. The first test got over, I think, around a week back. And at the time of recording, the second test is about to start tomorrow. So we are recording this on 1st of July. Hopefully it's out at a relevant time and not sitting in the drafts for a few weeks. So let us talk about the first test. Uh, India lost. It was pretty much expected. The kind of backdrop we had going into the series with Rohit and Kohli retiring and a new inexperienced team. So we lost, but I think the fact that we had the game stretched up to the last session itself, I think I would have taken that before the match started. But seeing them play, I think you couldn't help but feel a bit of disappointment with the way things ended. So I don't think you followed the match as closely as I did, but what did you make of it?
Yeah, I was looking forward to this series from a long time, especially after Virat and Rohit retired, because this is probably the start of a new era of Indian Test cricket. Because we have got so many young players like Jaiswal, Shubman Gill, Dhruv Jurel, and our bowling attack as well is pretty young. So I was looking forward to seeing how they play. I wasn't able to follow the first match because I had a couple of assignments and exams exactly during the first test period. So hopefully I'll watch the remaining test matches. But I had this one question for you. Do you think India lost because they played bad cricket, or do you think England just played really good cricket and they beat us convincingly? Because I heard this sentiment going around over social media that there were a few people who were complaining about India losing a lot of opportunities to close the game. Like, for example, we dropped a lot of catches and our tail did not really contribute as much. But at the same time, if you see, England chased more than 370 in the fourth innings, which is a huge task. And it's happened only 9 or 10 times in the history of Test cricket. So that has to be taken into consideration. So do you think, like, what's your opinion? Did England really outplay India, or did we drop the ball and lose opportunities to close the game?
Yeah, so I think that's what a lot of people thought as well. Because if you purely look at the stats, this is England's second highest run chase in the history of Test cricket,
Yeah.
and it's an anomaly in 180 years of Test cricket. But I don't think I would have been that surprised if someone told me before the match that England will chase the score on that pitch. It was a flat track basically, but
Hmm.
there was a bit of rough created, which unfortunately Jadeja couldn't really exploit. And it's not the first time that that's happened, so it's a bit of a concern. But I think our fielding, as you mentioned, and the tail not contributing, I think we lost 7 for 31 in the first innings
Yeah.
and 6 for 45 in the second innings. So that is around 75 runs for 13 wickets in a match where I think we scored around 750 runs. So that is really shameful if you're being honest. And also the fact that we included Shardul Thakur ahead of a better bowler just because he gives us the balance with the bat and he couldn't score more than 10 runs in the match. So I think that is where we really uh, had a bit of a issue with the team balance. We tried to, we went a bit defensive. That's what I feel with the combination.
Hmm.
And what is surprising is Gambhir in the pre-match press conference, he said that I think he mentioned very clearly that our aim should always be to pick 20 wickets and those extra runs won't matter if we can't pick 20 wickets. That's what he said. And then he went on to pick someone who will give him the extra runs and not give him the 20 wickets. So
Hmm.
I don't know what mentality he has, and it can be very harmful if he continues to go on this path. So
Yeah,
that was about the tail.
I was really surprised that they picked Shardul because they didn't really utilize his bowling or batting. Instead of
Yeah.
him, they could have gone with either Nitish Reddy, who provides more batting, and you can bowl him as much as they did Shardul. Or they could have gone with Arshdeep Singh as well if they wanted an extra bowling option. So they didn't really
Yeah.
utilize Shardul well, I think.
If you pick a fourth pacer, but you don't have the confidence to give him a long spell when your main bowlers are tired, then there's no point picking a fourth pacer.
Yeah,
And you could have just gotten a better batter. Or if you wanted a fourth pacer who you could actually trust, then you had that as well. So they
correct.
were stuck in between, I believe. And I think from what I heard from Shubman Gill before the second test in today's press conference, He mentioned that they missed a spinner in the last game, someone who can just dry up the runs from one end and if not picking wickets. So I think the plan will change before the second test and maybe Shardul will be replaced by Washington Sundar. And if Bumrah is not playing, uh, I think Akashdeep will come in.
Hmm.
I don't know, but from what I heard, I don't believe that they have the confidence to play Kuldeep in the 11. I think it would be better than Sundar, but it just depends on the team management. So those were some of the points from the first test.
Yeah,
Those were the, I think, a few bad negative points or weaknesses of India, but there were a few positives as well. So I think the biggest positive and the most visible one was Rishabh Pant is back in form and he's back to doing what he does best, that is score runs at number 5 for India.
yeah. His batting it felt like vintage Pant, and he was also doing his somersaults after scoring centuries. So it was great to see. And at the same time, I'm really sad for Sanjeev Goenka because for the entire IPL, Rishabh Pant did basically nothing with the bat, and he ended his campaign with a century, and then he goes on to score two more centuries here. So it's good that Pant is back in form, but
Yeah,
it feels so bad for Goenka. He was very unlucky.
and I think I saw after he did the somersault after the first 100, in the second innings when he scored 100, Gavaskar was in the balcony and asking Pant to do the somersault again. And Pant just straight up refused to him. He said, "No, I'll do it later," and made Gavaskar go back in. And then, as unexpected lines in the extra innings show, I heard Gavaskar ranting about Pant not doing the somersault for a second time. So just Gavaskar thinks tried to gain a bit of attention out there and failed miserably.
So
I
now, what
think
do you think? Uh, I think I read in the news that Jofra Archer is most likely to be back. I think they must have announced the squad. So is he playing for them in the second test?
yeah, so he's back in the squad,
Hmm.
but they're playing the same 11 for the second test. So he's
Okay.
just going to be with the team. I think that is a bit confusing for me because he could have used that time to play in the county championship and gain some match practice rather than being with the team. Surely he'll try to settle into the environment. He hasn't played a test match in 4 years, so it'll be his first test under Stokes and McCullum. So I think he might just use the time to get used to the environment in the team and I think be with the boys rather than
Yeah.
playing in the championship. Because I saw, uh, I think Surrey put up 820 in one of the
Oh,
games. So I don't think there's any point playing in the county as well at this point.
so Archer
So he's
played his
back,
last test versus India in 21, right?
yeah, in Ahmedabad.
Okay.
And he's not played when England lost 16 out of 17 tests, and then he hasn't played in the baseball era either. So it's a big miss for him. He's coming back to Test cricket after a very, very long break.
Yeah. So
So
most
the
likely
last time he
we'll have,
played, Kohli was
yeah,
India's Test captain.
correct.
He missed the
Yeah.
entire Rohit Sharma era.
So for the third test, we'll probably have Archer versus Bumrah. So that should be a exciting contest.
Yes, and hopefully the pitch is not like the one in the World Test Championship, where there was very much, I think, one of the lowest bouncing pitches at Lord's in a while.
Hmm. So
So
now,
those were a few points.
I also had another question for you. There was a lot of speculation that Bumrah is not going to be playing all the five games. But now that India have lost the first test, if you were the captain or coach, would you risk playing Bumrah again for the second test just to hope that we win and make the series equal, and then maybe rest him for the third and fourth if needed? Or do you think India should go without him and risk being 2-0 behind and then put a lot of pressure on the team for the last three games?
Yeah, that's a bit of a problem that India trapped. They got themselves trapped in because I think you can't overdo Bumrah or you can't make him work extra time when he's on the brink of another injury
Yeah,
because and this injury could well be career threatening for him because it's if he gets injured in the same place again, then he's potentially lost his career. So it's a big dilemma.
yeah,
And I think on the other hand, if you look without Bumrah, India's bowling looks very much toothless. Even
correct.
when he's playing and he's just not bowling, even then the bowlers just look hopeless. So imagine an entire test without him, and I don't think India would be too happy to imagine a game like that. But such are the circumstances. So you have to adjust his workload while also optimizing his use. So I think if he doesn't play and they serve another flat deck, the only way out is to play for a draw, I think, because
Mm,
it's a bit disappointing to say that as an Indian fan, but I don't see the bowling attack without Bumrah pick 20 wickets, especially at Birmingham, which is again one of the better batting tracks. So one of the uh, uh, like one of the strategies could be to just play for a draw and let Bumrah rest and then see what happens in the other three games. Or the one more way could be to stretch it as much as you can, but give like dangle the carrot for England and just hope that they throw wickets in the second innings or something. They make mistakes. But
yeah,
for that to happen or to expect such a outcome, you have to be confident with your base and you should not be making the mistakes that you made, especially in the first game, like poor fielding and bad batting at the with the tail. Such basics you have to cover because already you are on the back foot and you don't want to miss out on whatever chances you get. So
correct.
I'm not sure if we can do that because the mindset doesn't really look like we're geared up to play tough cricket and grind out there. But it would be good if we can sort of push towards that direction more.
Okay. I think I have one last question about this, and I think this is the most interesting question. So, for all the viewers, let me tell
Yeah.
you that me and Ved, we are not just cricket viewers, but we understand the game pretty deeply. And when it comes to Test cricket, I think Ved follows it very closely. He even wakes up at unusual times to watch games, for example, in Australia. So, one thing that I've heard from him quite a lot is about captaincy. So, for example, when Rohit Sharma was captaining India, Ved used to often complain that he lacks a lot of proactiveness in the field. He doesn't really support his bowlers as much. He doesn't put the right field placements, or he's not as energetic as as Virat Kohli was back when he was the captain. So now I want to ask you, if you have, I'm sure you have watched the first test very closely. What do you make of Shubman Gill
Mm.
as a captain? Do you think he is on the right track, or do you think he has a lot to improve? And in general, what do you make of his captaincy in the first test?
Okay, so that's a very tricky one to answer. But I think captaincy is more or less divided into two parts. One is the bowling changes and that aspect more of or like when to get a bowler in and what do you say to him? And the second
Yeah,
part is the field setting and the activeness on the field, or coming up with field placements for a particular batter. So I think in both aspects, Gill is pretty new to
correct.
captaincy, and I think he managed the fielding part very well. He set up fields and he kept coming up with new plans. He didn't just open up the field and wait for the batter to make mistakes, which I have accused Rohit of in the past. So that was very good to see. Like for example, when Harry Brook in the first innings, he was going berserk. He came up with a short ball plan and asked Siraj and Prasid to bowl short balls, and eventually got him out on the short ball as well. And even Jamie
Correct.
Smith on the same strategy. So I think strategically he was very impressive. Surely there's a lot of room for improvement, but it's a good way to start. But I think in terms of bowling changes and uh, tactics with regards to bowling, I think he lacked a bit of impetus there. And I think more than that, he lacked a guiding hand, because
Hmm.
when you're a young captain, you need someone to help you out. And I think Bumrah tried doing it, but how much can he do? You need a, a team environment that is set up so that you don't have to keep telling players to do something, or keep telling bowlers to uh, give their best or something. Because I observed Prasidh Krishna and Shardul Thakur especially were a bit lethargic and a bit not too active. I don't know how to put it. They were not that involved. That's what I felt. I could be wrong,
Hmm.
but that's what the perception was.
Okay.
Especially Shardul Thakur. At one point, a ball bounced in front of him and just went past him, and he was lying on the ground and just complaining that the ball spun instead of running behind the ball and stopping it. So it's a part of the game, but it doesn't give a good vibe when you're actively doing such things, when you should be uh, more involved in the game. So I think that's where Gill lacked a bit of support from his bowlers, and he too did not make the right choices on a few occasions, like over bowling Jadeja. I think when
Hmm.
he was not effective and not trusting Shardul enough, some of his mistakes, but I think he was impressive and he'll get over those mistakes quite soon.
That's good to know. Plus, I think he batted very well. Uh, Scoring a century on
Yeah,
your captaincy debut is pretty remarkable.
and I could see that fire in his eyes, and
Yeah.
I feel that he's one of those guys who really gets amped up by the responsibility and not bogged down by it. You've seen a few examples like the very great Sachin Tendulkar as well, could not handle responsibility that well. Different players react to it differently, but from what I've seen in Shubman Gill, I think he's someone who's going to up his game for the team and going to embrace the responsibility.
But to be honest, for India, I haven't really seen any player struggling, at least in the modern era, when they become the captain. Because I remember MS Dhoni, he was obviously playing really well when he was the captain. Virat Kohli took his game to the next level when he became the captain. Rohit Sharma as well, he reinvented his batting, especially in the limited overs format, and he started contributing really well in the power play, especially. Ajinkya Rahane as well, when he got those few chances, he played very well and he scored centuries as well as the captain. So apart from Sachin Tendulkar, at least in the modern era, I don't really remember anyone who's lost their game or their personal contributions by a lot when they've become the captain.
Yeah, I think India have been blessed in a way that they have never really had a major turmoil in captaincy, and
Yeah,
most of their transitions have been smooth, and uh, they've been very a little chopping and changing, so the players have been in a good mindset. But if you go around the world, we have seen a lot of legends take up captaincy and struggle. I think the latest recent example would be Josh Butler for England. He
Hmm.
eventually gave up captaincy to Harry Brook, and it affected his batting as well. And even in tests, Joe Root, he could not manage. He did bat well in, I think, the tail light of, yeah, in the
Tail end.
tail end of his captaincy career, but for major part even he struggled. So there are a few examples, but I feel India have been lucky, and Shubman Gill will continue that legacy.
Yeah. So now I think that's a lot of talking about the India-England Test series. Do you want
Yeah,
to add anything else about a few cricket updates from around the world?
yeah. I think it's time to do a quick fire round of updates. First, we'll talk about other Test cricket that is going on. We have Bangladesh who are touring Sri Lanka right now, and I think the Test series is over, and the ODI series will start this week. And Sri Lanka really dominated in one of the tests and were put on the back foot in the other one. But the game, I think the first test was also a farewell test of Angelo Matthews, the
Hmm.
Sri Lankan stalwart, and he did uh, perform well. One of those players, one of those many players who you just look at his numbers and just you won't believe the kind of numbers he's racked up over the years, and just goes unnoticed. But he's been a major contributor for Sri Lanka. And then that game ended up in a draw. And in the second test, I think Sri Lanka were very dominant. Pravit Jayasuriya picked a fifer at Galle again. He has some of the most fascinating relationships with the stadium that I have seen. I think at Galle he averages around 12 or 13 with the ball, and 85% of his Test cricket wickets have come at Galle, which is a
Wow.
very bizarre stat. And he continued that, and Bangladesh were blown away. And I think
This is part
there's
of the
nothing
new
much to update.
WTC cycle, right?
Yeah, this was the
Okay.
first series of the new cycle. And also the other series, which is Australia versus West Indies, Australia touring West Indies. And first test, I think, ended up in a pretty obvious way. I think I could see what how it was going to unfold. West Indies looked promising for in a few moments, but they couldn't really rack up enough of those moments to get a win.
Hmm.
Australia, I think they missed Steve Smith a little bit, but more or less their future in Test cricket, especially in the batting front, looks very bleak, if I am being honest. They don't look that geared up, and the backups are not as good as, or even half as good as their main team. We saw Sam Consta struggle, Khawaja looks washed, and Cam Green at three will take time. So they could be in doldrums in this cycle, and I'm excited to see how it unfolds. Did you catch the Australia West Indies game?
Uh, Not really. I couldn't watch any cricket, but I was scrolling on the internet and I saw about Australia struggling with the bat in the first innings, and the reporters were demanding a major reset, especially after the
Mhm.
WTC final, because I think that game as well they should have won after the kind of first innings that they had, but they batted poorly in the second innings and gave South Africa the chance to win. And obviously the conditions helped South Africa, but uh, yeah, as you said, the batting is under a lot of pressure internally and externally as well. So it's going to be great to see how Australia fight back. I think this is very similar to the 2021 or 2020 era where they didn't have Warner and Smith and they had to bring new players and
Mm.
try a lot of different opening combinations. So should be interesting.
Yeah, and I think one of the bold moves that the selectors took was dropping Manas Labuschagne from the
Yeah,
squad, and because he hadn't performed in quite a while. I think since 2021 or since 2022, he averaged in the low 30s, and he didn't have a lot of innings of note. So they had to drop him at some point, and they chose this the start of a new cycle, which is pretty uh, self-explanatory, but I still didn't expect them to take the call.
yeah. Honestly, Labuschagne felt like the next big thing in Australia. Like I was for many years, I was thinking that he would be the next Steve Smith or the next Ricky Ponting for them. But apart from November 19th, I don't remember any significant
Mm.
contributions of his.
He started his career with a bang in the Ashes when he came as a concussion substitute for Steve
Yeah,
Smith, and I think till pretty much till the Border Gavaskar Trophy in 2021, he was prolific with his run scoring. And even in the Border Gavaskar Trophy, he had 100, couple of 50s. He was still their
correct.
best batter. And I think since then it's just gone downhill. And after the home Border Gavaskar Trophy 2023, where we didn't let him score at all, I think he just scored 150 in 4 test matches. And since then, it's just not even a few contributions here and there, even those have gone missing. So I think it was a fair call to drop him.
Cool.
So that was about the Test cricket. I won't dive into the leagues. There are a lot of leagues happening. I don't really consider that as
I think I
true
had
cricket.
one cool fact about the Major League Cricket, which is happening in US. I think I'm not sure if they've won it last time, but the Seattle Orcas, they are a former champion
Mm.
of the MLC, and they recently broke a 10-match losing streak. And that happened after Shimron Hetmeyer hit a last ball six against Emma New York. So that was a pretty eventful end to the game, and they broke their 10-match losing streak, and they won the next game as well. So
Oh.
they look to be on a winning note now. But Mumbai and I think the last time I checked, not Mumbai, MI New York and the Knight Riders franchise, they are struggling. And this is a
Yeah.
common pattern for MI franchises because whenever Pollard seems to captain or play for a franchise, they struggle and they just lose. And when he is not playing, they end up winning the championship. So I think Pollard is the
Mm.
reason.
Well, now that I think of it, I think MLG has been quite eventful this year. I've seen a lot of funny things and close matches. I remember the Trent Bolt run out, if you
Yeah,
saw that, where he lost his bat and tried to get in and got run out. And he did that twice. I think once yesterday as well. He got out in the same fashion. And one of the games, uh, I think LA Knight Riders were in the field and they had to defend one of one. And
yeah,
Jason Holder, the ball went to Holder and he juggled it twice, thrice, and dropped the catch and they lost the match and got
yeah.
knocked out, I think. So quite eventful for T20 leagues uh, as far as they go, but nothing to really get me hooked to the league and make me wake up at 4 a.m. Only Test cricket can do that. So now let us quickly dive into a few new ICC rules. So if you remember, ICC just keep coming up with new regulations every year or mostly at the start of every new test cycle. They just launch new rules for each format and they've done it again this year and they'll be in effect at the time of recording, they're already in effect. So the first rule is the stop clock, which was part of a limited overs games, is now brought to Test cricket as well. So you have 1 minute to get a new over started, and if you fail to do that, it will be tallied, and at every, I think, third time that you fail to start within 1 minute, you will give out a fire and penalty, even in Test cricket. So it's interesting, but I don't know how impactful the fire and penalty will be in Test cricket. So
Yeah.
interesting. And the second one is saliva. So, so if you know, since COVID, whenever the team uses saliva to shine the ball, they change the ball
Yeah.
just to prevent any uh,
Contact.
problems, COVID
Yeah.
related. Yeah. So now they realized that when the ball got old, teams started using saliva and got the ball changed because they couldn't get the umpire to put it through the loop and it failing the loop test. So they found out a new way. Just put saliva. So the umpires had to change the ball. Very smart, but ICC realized that, and now they say that COVID is not spreading, so we won't change the ball, but you're not allowed to use saliva. So now if you use saliva, they'll wipe it off and they'll just give you a warning, but you'll have to use the same ball. So
Hmm.
it's very funny. At one instance, they don't want you to shine the ball to make it new, but they also won't change the ball for you. So it's a very peculiar situation, but it is what it is. I think IPL started allowing saliva this year, and you
Yeah.
saw reverse swing and all that
Correct.
pop up again. So I don't know why ICC can't do that. And then we have updated DRS review protocols. So I think most of these were already implemented in IPL. So those who only watch IPL would feel that these are not new rules, but for international cricket, they are new. So this one is like when you take a review for LBW and uh, every mode of dismissal would be checked. But
Correct.
now when you take a review for LBW and there's an edge involved, so they will check the catch, but only if you appeal for the catch, I think. So the fielding captain will have to tell why they're taking the review. So it's a bit more complicated, but they don't want the batters to lose advantage here. So you'll be only the umpires will check only for a specific mode of dismissal and not all the possible dismissals. And then we have a few catching rules as well. Like if the catch is unclear and the fielder says that it is caught when it is clearly not caught, so the fielding team will be penalized with a no ball, which is a big rule because I don't think fielders claim it wrongly. They just feel that they have caught it.
Yeah.
They don't
Exactly.
do it intentionally. And it's difficult to differentiate between
Yeah.
the malpractices. So I don't get it. But hopefully the umpires are able to catch the fielders wrongly or rightly, but they'll have to come up with a answer. And also batters when they attempt to take short runs, we have seen that. We have seen Pollard do it quite a few times. So that will lead to fire and penalties. And also the fielding side can choose if they want the other player to come on strike
Hmm.
as a penalty. So when you try to take a short run so that you can get back to your crease faster, you sacrifice 1 run, but you get back. So you'll not only lose 5 runs, but the bowling team can make you get back to the non-striker's end and make the person you're trying to protect come on strike. So I think that's a very good one because short runs you can make out when they're intentional and not non-intentional. Because sometimes we see players like Pollard just halfway down the pitch and they walk a run back. So in those cases, it's very easy. And hopefully these rules are implemented in the right way and not just
Yeah.
for the sake of it.
To be honest, I don't see these penalties being dished out, but it's just there to be on the rule book, and it will be used in extreme cases. But I think for most situations they'll just
Yeah,
give a warning and probably tell the team
yeah.
that next time if you do it, you'll be penalized.
And I think 5 or 6 years down the line, maybe in the 2029 Champions Trophy high stakes game, someone does this and one of these rules is implemented and the whole world goes like, when did this rule even come into play? And then half the world will come to know when it's used for one time somewhere in the future. So right now, I don't think these rules will have much of a consequence on the games, but they've just added it to use it at the right time.
Yeah, I think one more
So do
thing
you
that
want
you
to wrap
wanted
up
to,
cricket? Yeah.
yeah,
So we'll
you
wrap
wanted
it
to
up
talk
with
about, yeah, you can go ahead.
a shocker. Yeah. It's a very surprising news that I read, I think just an hour before we started recording, which was that ICC and ECB are in talks and have planned to launch a ICC event for franchises, and it will be called the World Club Championship, and it's aimed to launch in 2026. And what I read in the headline was that it's backed by ECB, ICC, and has guarded backing from BCCI. So I think all this means is that BCCI are ready to support it as long as it doesn't hurt IPL. So it'll be interesting to see how this story unfolds. What are
Yeah,
your thoughts on this?
yeah, this is very interesting, and it's pretty funny that they have announced this during the FIFA Club World Cup, which is happening in the US,
Mm.
and it's also the first time that FIFA is doing something similar to this. So
Yeah,
I
and
read,
especially when it is a
yeah,
notably failed event as per many.
yeah. So I read more about this on Cricinfo recently, and it said that ECB and BCCI are mainly coming together to battle the Saudi interest in cricket because I recently read that they are really excited to launch a global T20 league, and their take on this is very different. They want to have it like tennis, where you will have four different mini tournaments happening at four different times of the year in four different countries, similar to the Grand Slams that happen in tennis. And then you'll probably have
Mm.
a main final event, which will have the best teams from all of these four tournaments. So, and they have also
Oh,
hired a very famous Australian cricket expert. I think he's the father of Glenn Maxwell, if I'm not wrong. So he's joining
oh,
this. He's joining this venture in Saudi Arabia. So BCCI and ECB are mainly threatened by this. So they want to eliminate the threat by coming together and launching something like this. So should be interesting how this goes. And I think ECB and BCCI are pretty serious about this. So it would be cool. But imagine if you have four MI franchisees playing the semifinals from all the four corners of the world.
yeah.
That will be very funny.
And that's what really bothers me. That unlike other sports, here you have the same set of players playing for
Yeah,
different franchises in around the world. So either you bring down the owners as one team, so all the
yeah,
different teams just become one, or you could uh, have them choose between the teams. But it would still be very weird to see MI New York play MI Cape Town and Texas
Correct.
Super Kings play Chennai Super Kings. So I don't know how that will unfold, but I think this will happen and this will go forward in some form or shape because of the Saudi Arabia pressure, as you mentioned. They cannot just sit back and relax. They have to take some action and do something different so that the fans remain attracted to this model and not the Saudi model.
Correct. And most importantly, Saudi has a lot of money, so they can just buy different teams, buy different players, and that's the biggest threat. So I think this is something worth paying attention to, and it should be quite interesting.
Yeah. So I think that's all of cricket that we could possibly cover in this episode. Almost spoken about cricket for around 47 minutes now, and I think other sports also deserve a bit of time. So I think it's time for you to take over with your favorite sport, which is Formula One. So what happened this week?
Yeah. So this is something that I would like to tell the viewers. Um, I I am a huge Formula One fan, and I started watching it since 2018, but I got very regular in 2021, I would say. Since 2021, I haven't missed a single race. I may have missed watching it live, but then I've gone back and rewatched the entire race. So, yeah, let's talk about the F1 season this year. Uh, this year it's very strange because you've got McLaren fighting at the top after so many years. I think the last time they were at the top was back in 2012. So it's been quite a wait for them. And it's been mostly Norris versus Piastri, the two drivers who have been fighting for almost all the wins this year. Max Verstappen, who's the four-time defending champion, he was looking competitive at the start, but now McLaren have upgraded their car. Red Bull haven't really managed to do that, so Verstappen consistently falls short of the two McLaren drivers. So let's talk about this race that happened on Sunday. It was in Austria. The track is called the Red Bull Ring. So it was the home race of
Mm,
Red Bull, and it couldn't go worse for them because in qualifying, as I said, Max Verstappen was absolutely nowhere. He was in P7, almost zero point 0.8 seconds behind the McLarens. And even in the race, his race ended on the first lap at the third corner because a Mercedes driver, Kimi Antonelli, he hit him from the back and took him out of the race on the first lap. So that basically destroyed Verstappen's race. I don't really think he could have gotten more than P5 in the race, but that's still at least some points. But they ended up scoring zero because his teammate Yuki Tsunoda also couldn't do much and he finished last on the road. That's obviously expected because the second Red Bull seat has been really difficult for all the drivers to do well in. We have
mm,
seen the likes of Sergio Perez, Liam Lawson, and Yuki Tsunoda now, who have all struggled and they look way off compared to Max. So Red Bull basically is a one-car team right now, and since Verstappen was out in the first lap, that race was basically done by lap one. It was quite interesting at the front because this was the first time we saw Norris and Piastri actually fighting on the track for a race win. They obviously fought in Canada, but that was for P4, and Norris ended up crashing. So we couldn't really see a proper on-track fight. But this time it was really nice to see Piastri and Norris fighting for multiple laps, multiple corners. They kept overtaking each other,
mm,
and in the end, Norris held Piastri. This was a very important win for him because he was 22 points behind in the championship going into this race, and now with this win, he's 15 points behind. So it brings him a bit closer and it kind of eases a bit of pressure on him. And it's also good for him that the next race, which is happening on this Sunday, is at Silverstone, which is his home race. So he'll
Mm.
have a lot of supporters, and that should give him that extra performance that he needs to beat Piastri. Another thing that I want to talk about is Ferrari, because I think this was the first race that they had this year where they qualified well. They qualified in P2 and P4, and they ended the race pretty well as well. They finished in P3 and P4, with Leclerc scoring his fourth podium of the year, if I'm not wrong. And Hamilton also looked very comfortable. He finished almost 30 seconds ahead of George Russell, who finished in P5. So it looks like Ferrari have taken a step forward, but they're still way behind McLaren because neither Leclerc nor Hamilton were even in contention to race the McLarens. But at least they're way ahead of Mercedes and Red Bull, so that looks good for them. It's Hamilton's home race as well next time in Silverstone, and he has a very impressive record. I don't think he's finished off the podium at Silverstone since 2013, if I'm not wrong. So it's
Oh.
going to be quite a challenge for him to continue that streak this time because he
Mhm.
doesn't have to just fight the McLarens, but Leclerc as well. And I'm sure Leclerc is not going to give up a podium for Lewis Hamilton. So that should be a very interesting duel to follow this weekend. And yeah, as of now, the championship is looking very close for the drivers. Um, I think constructors is pretty much done. McLaren is more than 200 points ahead of Ferrari.
Oh.
So that can be already, you know who's going to win it. But I'm excited for the drivers' championship, and yeah, I'll keep you posted with what happens in our next podcast.
Yeah, I think that was a very impressive summary of this year. I think I got to know more about uh, the happenings in this year's championship than I've had any knowledge about. So thanks for that. And I just wanted to ask, now that we are talking about F1, how much does a teammate really have an impact on your season as a driver? Because I've seen a few mismatches in the past where uh, you're made to give positions to the uh, to your teammate if he's in a better position in the standings,
Yeah,
or even when I think Mercedes was a famous example back in their prime when Bottas regularly used to hand his winning or good positions to Hamilton. And I think I just wanted to ask how much of this camaraderie between the teammates really matter. Because there's also a lot of age gap, I think, in some of the teammates. One is really experienced, like I think in Aston Martin, you have Alonso and Stroll.
yeah.
One of them is a 20-year driver, and the other is a 20-year-old driver, just hypothetically. So, how much impact does that have on the team and the racer individually?
Yeah, that's a very good question. F1 is a very interesting sport because while it is a team sport and you have a team
Mm,
of engineers and drivers working towards your goal, for the drivers it's an individual sport because you're the one racing, you are fighting for a
mm,
drivers championship, but at the same time you have a constructor championship where you have to help your team score the maximum points. So it's usually a very interesting dynamic, and it depends on the situation and the team. For example, at McLaren this year, their primary objective is to win the Constructors' Championship, and they've made it very public and very
mm,
clear. And there have been several questions towards them where people are asking that since you're so ahead of Ferrari, why can't you let your drivers race on track? And why can't they
mm,
kind of be a bit selfish for themselves? And the team is saying that, no, it doesn't work like that. They are McLaren drivers at the end, so they have to respect the team. So at McLaren, it's very clear that you have to follow the team instructions. They are allowed to race, but if it gets beyond a certain limit, McLaren asks them to hold position and follow the team orders. Whereas you have
Mm,
teams like Red Bull where there's no competition for who's the number one driver. It's always going to be Max. So if Sonoda by chance, if he's ahead of Max, it never
mm,
happens. But in case he is, he's just made to move out, and you cannot challenge Max. So it depends on teams. And as you said about team orders, I think right now it's too early in the season, especially for someone like McLaren, where they have both the drivers fighting for the championship. This happened last year where Max Verstappen was leading and Lando Norris and Piastri both were chasing him. But when you got to the 75 or 80% mark of the season, it
mm,
was pretty clear that Norris had a better chance of catching Verstappen. And although Piastri wasn't too behind, he was I think 20 or 30 points behind Norris. They still made him uh, concede for Norris, and they had a lot of team orders where they asked Piastri to let Norris by just because Norris was the most he had the most chances of catching Verstappen. So I think team
mm.
orders come into play towards the end of the season, maybe uh, from like September onwards, because that's when the business end of the season starts. Right now, it's just the start. We are reaching the halfway mark, so the teams are happy to allow the drivers to fight and kind of make their cases for why they should be the number one driver.
Okay. Uh, so do you think, I think, uh, you have a few teams that have their first driver assigned and they were in the market looking for a second driver. For
Yeah,
example, Ferrari. Well, they weren't in the market that already signed Hamilton, but uh, do you think choosing a second driver to complement your first driver, uh, that many teams do they consider the like bonding or camaraderie with the second driver, or it's purely on the best available racer? Because you have to imagine that preference will be given to your first driver on most occasions. So you're out there looking for someone who's a good racer, but who's also happy to complement the main driver. So in that, do you just blindly go for the best available racer, or uh, do you consult with the main driver and find someone who's more suited for his style and uh, like complements him more than having two very good drivers and you find it hard to manage them?
yeah, that's a great question as well, and it's very relevant as well because last year, if you remember, when Ferrari signed Hamilton, Carlos Sainz was basically left without a seat and he was looking for different teams and he was making his case for them. And there was a major rumor going around that Red Bull were probably looking at hiring Sainz to drive alongside Verstappen. But now this
Mm,
made things a bit tight because Max has never really had a teammate who's been, uh, let's say, as talented as him. I
mm,
think Daniel Ricciardo was the last teammate who actually challenged Verstappen at Red Bull. After that, it's been one way. So when Red Bull were trying to go for science, there were rumors that Verstappen blocked the move, and he reportedly was not happy with
uh,
the management and said that you can't do this because if science comes, then it's going to be a bit of a power struggle, and Verstappen won't have the say
mm,
that he has with the team right now. So I think Red Bull they didn't go for science. They wanted to, but because of Max, they couldn't go for him. But at the same time, if you
okay.
look at someone like a Audi or even Haas, who are a back marker and they don't really have a lot of history in the sport, they would prefer
Mm,
having really talented and strong drivers because that would one provide the team with some experience and it would help them progress. At the same time, it would make them very relevant in the market or even on
mm,
the internet. If you have let's say a championship or a race winning driver, it puts the eyes on your team because people want to see how
mm,
the driver is doing in the team. I think that's a strategy that Aston Martin uses quite a lot because in 2020 when they had Perez, he was doing really well. I think he finished fourth in the championship. So there was no reason to drop him. But just because they wanted a high profile signing and they saw that Sebastian Vettel was free, they decided to replace Perez with Vettel. And then when Vettel retired, they replaced him with Alonso. So they always want that one big superstar
Mm.
signing. So again, yeah, it depends on the team, but usually teams always pick the best driver available, and they mostly look to manage the inter-driver relationship. But in extreme cases, like let's say Red Bull, um, the number one driver has some say, and he gets to pick who his teammate should be.
Okay, that was a interesting insight, and honestly, I got to learn something from this. So we'll keep having chats on this topic in the future.
Yeah,
And for now, let us switch sports again and move to tennis. And as usual, this time of the year, you always have the championships, Wimbledon, just about starting, and same is the case this year. I think it all began on 30th of June, which is yesterday at the time of recording.
yeah,
And on the very first day, I think I followed it a bit this time. I think in the past few years, my interest had gone down, but I was keenly following it yesterday, and we saw a lot of upsets, which is not surprising. I'll tell you why in a bit, but we had Rune. Honestly, I don't know who he is, but he's world number 8. So he was pitted to uh, get into the quarterfinals. That's what the
yeah,
predictors said, and he lost in the first round. And you had Medvedev lose, Tsitsipas, I think he lost 2 sets and then got injured.
correct.
And then Zverev as well, he's world number 3, and I pretty much know about him, and even he lost. And also Musetti, I think the Italian, world number 7, even he lost. So it was very disappointing to see. You don't want such big names to crash out this early in the tournament. Just makes it a bit hollow watching the future games. But what was interesting was I saw Carlos Alcaraz, and he too struggled. He did pull through versus Fabio Fognini, one of the older names in tennis from the stick tennis days. I remember him. So I think he lost 2 sets versus Fognini, which is very
Yeah,
interesting. And I think today, just before recording, I had a quick look for any more upsets, and I saw Sinner won in straight sets. And I think as we are recording, Joko is playing his first match, and so it's very surprising to see so many big names crash out this early. So would you put that to the fact that they play on grass courts just at the time of Wimbledon, and everywhere else they mostly play on hard courts and clay courts? So do you think this is
yeah,
impacting the players, and it's bridging the gap between the quality of the players?
yeah. That's an interesting point because I've never really seen players like Medvedev, Tsitsipas, or Zverev do well in Wimbledon. They are always at their best on hard courts like Australia or the US Open. So it wasn't that much of a surprise to see, especially Medvedev and Tsitsipas out. Zverev was a bit surprising because as you said, he's been at the top. But uh, I think the biggest reason for this is that the grass court window is very small because they keep playing on hard courts and then on clay courts till the Roland Garros, after which
Mm.
they play, I think, one ATP tournament as a preparation for Wimbledon, and then they come to Wimbledon straight away. So I don't think they have enough preparation time. But this also exposes the all-round abilities of these players. If you look at someone like a Sinner or even Alcaraz, they are suited all round. They have a lot of all round abilities, so they can adapt well to any court. And I think this also highlights how great the big three were, because you
Mm.
never saw someone like a Djokovic or a Federer or even a Nadal get eliminated in the opening rounds at Wimbledon. So it just
Yeah,
shows how consistent they were, and they absolutely were the legends, and they still are legends of the game.
yeah, very true. And I think as we move forward, all the modern athletes are mostly not really flexible, or the adaptability is a bit low as compared to the greats of the past. We've seen that
Yeah.
across sports, and we will continue to see that. So I think it's clear that you have more knowledge about tennis than me. So who do you think will actually end up winning this year? Because I've heard a lot from experts, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot of knowledge about tennis, but I do follow Grand Slam tournaments quite a lot. So I was looking at the projected draws for all of the top eight seeds, and what struck me
Mm,
was Sinner's draw. It's really, really difficult because I think he plays seeded players right from round two or round three. So it's going to be a lot
oh,
more tougher for him than someone like an Alcaraz. And as you've mentioned, that Alcaraz was supposed to play Holger Rune in the quarterfinals, but since Rune is
mm,
knocked out, it makes it a bit more easier for Alcaraz. So I think Alcaraz should make it to the finals. If I'm not wrong, Djokovic will have to play Sinner at some point in the semifinals if he makes it to the
mm,
semifinals. And I don't think Djokovic can beat Sinner right now because of
yeah,
just how active and how powerful Sinner is. He's just got a better game.
mm,
He's more physically fit and physically active than Djokovic. So I think it's going to be another Sinner versus Alcaraz final. Uh, Alcaraz
oh,
may lose out on the way to Fritz, and now that Zverev is out, so that's another seeded player
mm.
out for Alcaraz. So he technically should make it. He's got a much easier run to the semifinals, but since it's the grass court, he may lose. You never know, but I think Sinner is going to make it to the finals for sure.
Okay. I I just hope that Djokovic doesn't get humiliated in front of Sinner, because as a Djoko fan, it would hurt me a lot. But anyways, I think tennis has transitioned from the big three to a new era, so you have to embrace it.
Yeah, I also want to point out that we don't really have a lot of information about women's tennis, but I think for the next podcast we'll have to do that because it's not fair. Uh, but from what I
Yeah,
think, Coco Gauff is the favorite once again, and I think she also has a easier draw to the final. So we'll cover more of that in the next podcast.
yeah. I think it's high time we become more inclusive, and I think
Yeah,
women's tennis is uh, widely regarded as, I think tennis is widely regarded as one of the more gender equal sport where
correct.
both genders get a lot of attention. So I think it is our duty to cover both genders. I think as a casual tennis viewer, I remember Coco Gauff bursting onto the scene around 4 or 5 years back as a 15-year-old, and then just disappeared for some reason. And I think she's back.
Yeah,
So
I think she won
very interesting.
the recent Roland Garros against Arina
Yeah.
Sabalenka in the final. So she's in form.
So that is something to look forward to. So I think it's been a very sport heavy podcast, and it's it's not that we don't have other things to discuss, but I think it was a very sporting few days, and other fields that we intend to cover were a bit silent or um, nothing much really happened. If we talk about India, uh, I think there were few uh, just casual news. I think one of the news that caught my eye was that Delhi uh, had planned cloud seeding, so to get in rain, but it got delayed so much that monsoon has already hit Delhi, and now the cloud seeding will take effect, and I think it's going to artificially rain from 4th to 11th of July, but by then monsoon would have already hit, and it's already starting to cause floods in the city, and so it's all misplanned, but interesting that they're trying something new there. And I think other than that, just the normal happenings. And even in the tech field, I think one major event which happened, I think, on the same day as we are recording this, is the Nothing event where they launched the Nothing Phone 3. And I think you have got a few details about that.
Yeah, I was watching it while having lunch, and I think the best thing about the event was that they straight away got to the point. They didn't really waffle around
Mm.
how nothing is evolved as a brand or something like that, that Samsung or
Yeah.
Apple is famous for. It was, I think, a 15 or 20 minutes event, so it was not huge as well. So they mainly launched the phone 3 and the headphone 1, two products. Phone 3, it was leaked way before the launch, and it wasn't
Mm.
anything different. It was the exact same model. Uh, what I learned is that they've tried to focus on making a flagship this time. So they have flagship level cameras. They've tried to implement flagship level software as well for the cameras. So they hope to compete with the top dogs of the industry like Samsung and Apple. But let's see how much that holds, because I don't really expect nothing to be as good as Samsung or Apple right now. But apart from that, a major change was the glyph interface, which is a staple on
Mm.
nothing phones. I have mine over here. So they usually have these
Mm.
lights, which was the key differentiating factor for a nothing phone for so many years. But now they have replaced that with a 25 by 25 centimeter pixel display at the back. So it's going to be on the
Mm.
top right corner of the phone, and it's a dot matrix display, which is going to be used for showcasing information or for a few interesting activities that they call glyph toys. For example, let's say you want to pick or flip a coin, you can make the glyph display
Oh.
flip a coin for you. Let's say you want to play rock paper scissors, you can do that with the glyph interface.
Oh.
It also shows you the time. It shows you who's calling, so you can have a custom art or a custom picture that shows up over there. There's also a button. I'm not sure if it's a button or a tactile touch responsive area, but if you press that, it kind of moves to the next display on the glyph interface. So it's used to interact with the glyph interface. And
Mm.
there's a feature called flip to record, which allows you to record uh, maybe meetings or conversations using just that button behind. So they are adding a lot more features to it. So it sounds pretty interesting. I'm not sure if removing the glyph interfaces or the lights was a good idea, because that made nothing phones unique. I think I'll take some time to
So
get
the
used to
lights
this.
are completely gone.
Yeah,
They don't
they
have the
replaced the
lights anymore.
lights. No.
Oh,
So that
that
will
is
take some
interesting.
time to get adjusted to, but at least they're making thoughtful decisions. It's not that they're trying random things. So I'm sure
Mm.
this will evolve into something interesting. And they think that it's going to be more useful than the glyph interfaces, which was just random lights. This will give you some information or help you interact with the phone without actually turning on the phone.
So I think um, nothing as a brand has evolved over the years. You've
Yeah,
seen them from 2021, where they launched, I think, nothing year one was the
correct.
first product. So it's good to see someone consistently holding on to the spot, and we've seen brands just loosen their grip or get complacent and throw it away. Famously, OnePlus, they had quite a good following, and the phones were highly anticipated, and now they just silently drop out phones every year, and the hype is gone. So hopefully nothing will continue that because you need more players in the market, just from a user perspective or a buyer perspective. So it's good to see them. And I
Uh,
think,
if you don't mind, can I ask you a quick question?
yeah,
I'm sure I mean, you know this obviously, but for the viewers, Ved recently bought a couple of new gadgets, which was a new smartphone and a new tablet. So I would want you to reveal it and then give your maybe 1 month review. It's been a month now. What do you feel? Uh, what do you feel as the biggest improvement or the biggest upgrade compared to the last devices that you had?
okay, so uh, now that I've brought it up, I think I used to use Galaxy S22, which I bought in March 2022. So after 3 years of rigorous use, I finally upgraded to Galaxy S25. It's basically uh, the same phone. So many people like to change up after a few years or they get bored, but I like simplicity and I like the form factor a lot. It's very handy and it's a size that I prefer. So that's what made me go with this phone. That's what made me go with the S22 3 years back, and I really love it. So talking about what I like, I think it's reliability. That's the most important thing for me. And I don't have to have any sort of concerns about my phone. I can just go on use it without any problems. I don't even notice that I have upgraded, which for me is a big thing. Uh,
Hmm.
so I like it a lot. I think the camera is also very good, and the display, I have to literally keep it at around 20% brightness so that it doesn't hurt my eyes that bright. And I think uh, I I need to reveal my tab as well. It's my Samsung Galaxy Tab S10 Ultra. Uh, and I upgraded from the Tab S7 Plus. So you can see a pattern. Uh, it's a 3 year wait before an upgrade for both the devices. And I think the major reason why I enjoy it is because of the ecosystem that is created with my Galaxy Buds as well, and
And your
and my Galaxy Watch. I think the ecosystem that Samsung provides is very good, and that's
hmm.
why I enjoyed more because only using the phone is good, only using the tab is good, but when you have them together, it's just very seamless, and that's what I like. And I
Yeah,
think the new One UI software as well has been pleasantly surprising and very much a bug-free experience. So I think the first word that comes to my mind, or if I had to describe my experience so far in one word, it would be reliability and just ease of use. So hopefully I don't run into any problems as soon as I've spoken so highly of my devices. So good going as of now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because from what I've heard on YouTube for all these phones is that they are the safest Android phones to recommend to anyone right now. Just like how iPhones used to be, and they still are. You can give it to literally anyone and they'll enjoy using it. That's where Samsung has reached now. So that's very good to see that there's an Android competitor who can match iPhone for every single spec and software as well now. So great to hear that.
Yeah, and I think Samsung has always been trying to get to this stage where you can call them a reliable Android phone maker. So I think in US at least, you want a iPhone or you want a Samsung. That's what
Correct.
people ask. They're slowly moving on from a lot of Android options. It's mostly limited to Samsung and I think Pixel in a few select regions, but it's the competition is slowly ending, which is good for Samsung, not good for the buyers, but I think Samsung is reaching its aim that they want to compete directly with Apple and not have to fight with other small Android makers.
Correct.
Okay, so I think that's a lot of talk for this week, and we had planned to talk about Indian sports broadcasting specifically, but I think we have to keep something for the next episode because it will eat up more of our time, and I don't think I want to give my time to such a third class system in India. We have to talk about it and expose it, but for another day. So, anything you would like to add before we wind up our first episode?
Yeah. When you were talking about there being a lot of sports content and not something from other fields, I think there's a lot to talk about other things as well. But this particular week there was a lot more to talk about sports, mainly cricket and Formula One for me, and there's Wimbledon going on as well. So a lot of things happening in the sports world. But I think in future episodes, if there's something big happening outside of sports, we'll definitely cover that as well. But I think for today, this is good and it's a nice start.
Yeah, and before we wrap up, I would like to touch up upon some of the things that we are planning in the future, because keeping our audience updated with our plans is important.
Yeah.
So I think we are planning on making a few special episodes as well, like explainers or uh, Q&As along the way, and even a few like game shows or something of that sort. Like one of the ways I can imagine going on is ranking, blind ranking games or ranking IPL seasons, ranking IPL finals, or like ranking basically. Those
Yeah.
games interest me a lot, and we can have explainers as I mentioned on what is F1 because I am very curious to know and also the insights that make watching the sport more interesting. And we can also talk about uh, India specifically and in the political forms, if anything interesting develops, and we can talk about world warfare. So those are some of the points that I would like to include in this podcast, and also have guests on who have expertise in different fields, so that our audience get uh, different perspectives.
Yeah.
We have a lot planned for you, and hopefully this podcast reaches you first of all, and then you give us your feedback, and we'll take it 100%. So that's it for now, and see you soon. First of all, hopefully we saw you first time.
Yeah.
Thank you. And this is Ved signing off the Unfiltered Feed podcast.
Bye bye.